Well, of course, there's only a few days left to go for political parties and movements to get their messages across. And one grassroots movement which is really going to give its message one final last big push ahead of the European elections is the Fridays for Future Climate Change movement, this student movement. They're calling for a global protest on Friday. And this is a movement that has really taken off in Germany in recent months. Students have been skipping school to take to the streets every Friday in towns and cities across the country, criticising what they say is the German government's hypocrisy when it comes to climate policy. And this is really resounding with German voters. For the first time, climate change is top of the list of issues that German voters are concerned about when they're heading to the ballot box in the EU elections. And this is expected to translate into a higher voter turnout this time around, especially amongst younger people, and especially to translate into greater support for the Green Party. Now, since the last EU elections, Angela Merkel has welcomed hundreds of thousands of refugees into Germany in 2015, and migration became an issue which really divided public opinion and reshaped the political landscape. The Anti-Migrant Alternative for Germany party entered the national parliament for the first time in 2017, and it is campaigning ahead of the European elections with a very strong anti-migrant message. With this, it is unlikely to gather a lot of new support, but it is really trying to consolidate its support base, especially in former Eastern German states where there will be upcoming state elections this year. Germany will be sending more MEPs to Brussels and Strasbourg than any other European country. It's the most populous nation in the European Union. But so the results of the German votes are not only important for Europe, but will also be read very closely here in Germany, because they're really also being seen as a test for how Germany's parties are doing domestically.
Jessica, thank you very much for that. Well, that's the view from Germany. Let's get the view now from the UK, where nearly 3 years on from that famous referendum, voters will be able to choose between pro- and anti-Brexit parties in this week's EU elections. Let's speak now to our correspondent, Tadhg Enright, who's outside the Houses of Parliament. And Tadhg, good morning to you. The British don't normally get very fired up about European elections, but this time round it's looking like it's going to be very different.
Yeah, I think that's right, Jeanette. Good morning to you. This time around, it certainly feels like it will be a protest vote, although it has to be said, I think a lot of European elections are seen as a protest vote here. A pro-Brexit vote or a Eurosceptic vote tends to be quite strong in general, but it will be particularly so this time around because the Eurosceptic constituency here will be angry that the Brexit referendum has not been delivered, and they'll be seeking to punish the government for it. But equally, on the other side of the fence, I think you can expect a boosted turnout by Remain supporters who are very keen to demonstrate the strength of their numbers, because they know that their numbers will be closely watched with a view to seeing whether there could be appetite for a second referendum. So for those reasons, I think turnout will be higher than it was last time around. 35% of voters turned out in 2014, and perhaps more younger voters this time around by those Remainers who are keen to demonstrate their strength. There is, of course, only one issue at hand here, Brexit. The front runners in this race, the pro-Brexit Party, Nigel Farage's new party, is expected to sweep the board with just one policy. It hasn't even bothered to articulate a manifesto beyond Brexit. The Conservatives, the ruling party, is expected to lose a lot of support to them. They are only talking about Brexit too. Some of the other parties, though, are trying to broaden it out, talking about things like environmental protection, workers' rights and security. But for those Remain supporters, there is a dilemma of sorts as to which party to support. There are three parties who are campaigning to stop Brexit altogether, and although they have that in common, they have not managed to set their other differences aside. They're campaigning separately. So the pro-Remain vote will be split, although you can be certain that people will be poring over the detail of those results to see how many people voted for stop Brexit parties and how that compares to those who vote for either Nigel Farage's new party, Brexit Party, or his old one, UKIP.